like someone in need of a friend.
Hello. We're going to give you guys about 5-6 minutes, okay?
Thank you. Okay. Hey guys.
Hello. I know you've answered all these questions a million times already.
Let's do it again.
No, just finish with your spiel. Give us the pitch.
The pitch? My pitch of the show?
Yeah, sure.
Well, okay, so if you're a fan of Babylon 5, you get an opportunity to come back to the characters and see them again, this time in an animated version, which I think is a very great stylized version of the show. We have an opportunity to expand on the visual look of the show. We get a chance to be able to really embellish it with visual effects that maybe weren't affordable to the original series. And we're picking up right where Season 5 left off, so you're able to actually continue the story, but then come on board if you hadn't seen the show before.
Well, when you say the end of Season 5, you don't mean the end of Season 5. You mean the episode before the end of Season 5.
Yes. Thank you.
So speaking of expanding the visual look, it's like, well, how much of that, kind of set down the show that you hold on to, or you sort of, like, well, now we have that freedom to expand what the hallways actually look like?
Well, what's funny is that Joe is really completely hands off to us. He really was like, and he actually encouraged us to make the movie that we wanted to make. And I know that Rick and I both became fans of the show. We really wanted to make sure that it felt like a celebration of that show. So while we were able to really embellish it and do things, we actually wanted to make it feel like it was respectful to the original show, like not some hyper new stylized, no different colors, no change of set designs. It was just an opportunity to just kind of just celebrate it, just be able to make it look more fantastic. It's something that the original budget maybe wasn't in the making for the original show. One thing that I really liked that we did was when I was working on doing my research for the show, I noticed that Bruce Boxleitner was left-handed, and so he had his badge, his communicator on his other hand. And normally that's something in animation we just wouldn't pay attention to it. Put everybody on the same hand. That way it would just save us a little bit of money. And when I mentioned that to Rick, he said, "No, absolutely not. We want to actually track that. We want that because we knew the fans would be looking for that kind of nuance."
I wouldn't notice.
That was what we did. For you, we did it.
Being with Warner Brothers Animation, we've seen you do Mortal Kombat and various other films. How do you find the time to give this the attention that it deserves?
I don't know at all. I'm exhausted. Really, it's they do a fantastic job of giving us the support that we need, and we're able to actually move from project to project. I would say pretty effortlessly, but it's also probably a little bit us that we get so into it. I know that I'm speaking for myself, but I know that all the other directors that agree with me, it's like we get this opportunity to work on these films. We're fans like you guys are. We're fans of the characters. We're fans of the TV show. So we want to actually do it to justice the way that somebody at home would want to see it. So I think that Warner Brothers' track record shows that, and I think it's something that we're really proud of. So
I think something I wanted to ask you last time I saw you was, what are the deadlines that you guys get? I mean, 3 months, a year, because they're coming out relatively quick. Seems like every 3 to 4 months.
Yeah. Production would tell you all sorts of different things. I mean, it changes from project to project. It's. I always feel like I want a little bit more time on it, but it actually keeps us really frosty, if that makes any sense. It's like I've heard about other productions, other studios where they sometimes give them this enormous amount of time, and they end up redoing it over and over again. They kind of get lost in themselves, and I think there's something about with us that we're able to really focus on the story, tell it the way we want, and keep it fresh. I think that's something that's really important. I think we don't get lost in ourselves. We don't get lost in the weeds when we make anything. Yeah. That's it then. So
I was just trying to be courteous.
How much of a love letter to the original fans is this one?
I think it's a pretty big love letter, actually. So I came onto the project. I knew of Babylon 5, but I had not seen the show, and I was actually working with Rick. I was slated to direct another movie altogether, and then Babylon 5 was brought to his attention, and he said, actually, I think Matt's going to really like this because I like science fiction and I also like good television. And so he pitched it to me. He said, what do you think about this? He's like, no pressure, you can still say no. So I watched a couple episodes and I said, put me on this. I really want to be involved. And then I ended up I was lucky enough. I was between projects that they actually gave me a couple of months. I was able to watch every episode. So I watched all of season 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 back to back, about 4 or 5 episodes a day, which became like it's such a binge-worthy show. And then apparently, and you can back me up on this, is that you don't just become a fan of the show. You start falling down the rabbit holes on the internet, and you start reading all these different things, and you start finding out all this different stuff. And so I just became a convert before I even started working on the project.
You got to watch it the second time. The second time you watch it, you'll pick up a million things you missed.
Well, I want to watch it with my wife now, because apparently that was something that Rick said to me when he started watching it. He stopped mid-season because he wanted to watch it with his wife. And that seems to be another thing that people keep saying is it's a great show to watch with friends and family. Yeah.
Although it will be, when you go back and watch the first hour long, get ready. Like you'll be stunned at how much of the show is in that first hour.
Yeah.
Yes. There's stuff that they say in Minbari that when you watched it the first time you didn't understand, but now you understand some Minbari. He gives away the whole story.
That's
Minbari.
incredible.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people, when I did my research online, people were saying that they basically watch the show like every 3 years or something. It would be like a period where they were like, it's time to watch Babylon 5 again.
So what's the most surprising element that you discovered going through it? Like buried within, visual detail or something?
I guess the biggest thing is, I hope this doesn't make me sound boring, but like it was when I was reading about how Joe was pitching the idea of the show, because he felt like it was really clever to create a television show that was in one location, because it would just help budget-wise, so that he could kind of expand on so many different ideas. You have so many different sci-fi shows that go from place to place to place, and it just exhausts so much money that you can't really like focus on the story you want to tell. And I just found that really kind of incredible that was something that he created and ended up becoming the template for so many other different sci-fi shows right now. So that just fascinated me. I guess from a filmmaking point of view, that really just blew my mind.
Is the plan for this to be like a series, or just kind of go into like lost episodes of things stories you would have told, like, or that the guys kind of?
This movie, you mean? I'm sorry.
No, like the next.
Like a series of movies.
Oh well, really, what it is I think that the movie is fantastic. I really hope it speaks to the fans, and if the fans speak up loud enough, which means they go, they purchase, they talk about it online. Warner Brothers has to hear that. I mean, it's worked before for other sci-fi franchises. I don't know why it wouldn't work for this one. So really, it's in the hands of the fans. If they really take to this movie the way that we hope they do, I don't see how it couldn't possibly make more stuff.
Now that you're a fan and you look at it, was it difficult for you to have to bring in different actors to replace the ones that we've lost?
It was heartbreaking only in the sense that when I found out how many of the cast had passed on, it was crushing a little bit just to come to that, because I was finding out about these characters and these actors after they had already passed on. So I get the opportunity to meet some of the cast, when we do recording and everything. So that's always a fun thing. So that was the sad thing. I never got an opportunity to tell, these different actors like how much that their performance really spoke to me and stuff. But the thing that was kind of made it bittersweet was the idea that we were continuing it, and that we found people who really wanted to embellish these characters, and not do an impersonation, but embellish the characters, so that those characters could live on. And I think the stylized version that we did, the animated version, really pays homage to that, and it's something that for me as a fan, like I said, that's something satisfying. It's sad to think that some people aren't here to celebrate like we can, but it's nice that we got a project and really kind of move forward.
But how much of a thrill is it to hear Peter Jurasik actually switch that voice on?
He was fantastic, and I also geeked out a little bit because I wanted to talk to him about Tron, but yes, exactly. He laughed about that, and he said some wonderful things about that film. But it was he was fantastic because when we first started recording, he felt. It seemed to me like he was like, I'm not sure, it's been a while since I've done the voice, and he talked about how he'd go to conventions and people would do the imitation of the character to him and stuff. And we had recordings set for him from the series if he wanted to hear them. He never even needed it. He just turned it on instantly and stuff. But he did talk about how it was different because he would normally have to put the whole headgear on, the makeup and everything, and there'd be like time to just get into character from doing that. Here he just walked into a sound booth and walked up to a microphone. So, yeah. Wando is one of my favorite characters, by the way. Yeah.
What was the decision on the choice of animation for this? Because it looks like it was like a CG style, like versus like I guess versus one of your other ones you used for your other movies.
Yeah, Rick Morales, our executive producer, worked really hard with design, and he was in charge of that. And he and I made a movie before using the same style called The Battle of the Super Sons, and we both fell in love with it working on that thing. It's just fantastic. It pays homage to the 2D animation that we love as kids growing up, but it also frees us by the fact that it has CG animation. The camera can do all these fantastic things that isn't possible in 2D, and we just thought it looked fantastic. And it felt like a natural fit. The idea that we didn't want to do some kind of creepy like action figure version of the characters. We weren't going to try to make them look like too like morbid in terms of how we were going to create these human characters. We wanted to do a stylized design of these characters, create the essence of who they were, and I think it really worked out. I think it looks fantastic, and I think it's really pays respect to the characters that we have.
Sure.
Now, did any thought going to the point that this is going to be an entryway for a lot of younger, newer fans of the series? Did you ever picture it or pinpoint, okay, this is the entryway to them, let's find a way to get them back to the original series?
Well, what's funny is that I know that Rick stopped his, when he was doing research on the show, he stopped mid, I think season 1 or 2, and he wanted to stop and watch it with his wife because he felt like it was something that he wanted to do. And I didn't get an opportunity to do that with my wife yet. But I know that we have done screenings with the movie, and that was the reaction we got, was that a lot of people who were fans of the show fell in love with it, obviously fell in love with the show, but people who had not seen the show, they felt that this movie was a great intro. They ended up feeling like they were like curious of who these characters are, they wanted to know more about it, and it would just hopefully lead to them becoming fans as well. So I think it works both ways. I think we got something that introduces the stuff and also celebrates what came before.
Gonna say no. I'm just gonna actually just drop it. Oh, I was like, thank you.
Oh, sure.
I got
Wandered off. Unless you have one more, because I was like,
I have one more too.
Sure, go ahead.
I was going to ask if there's an Easter egg that maybe you can share. Any Easter eggs that you guys put in that you can share?
Well, one thing that it was actually kind of a difficult thing that happened in production was there's a scene in the movie where there's a big screen that's got all these different images of alternate universes, and basically what I needed stuff to put in there. And immediately my thought was like, we got to get the original show, we got to put some stuff in. So I actually scrubbed through all 5 seasons to find individual shots from shows, and we did an animated version of those shots in that film. And I had to push for it because it was a situation that was basically we had to create we usually do Act A, Act B, Act C, and this was an Act D just as reference to be able to make this one shot happen. So that was the one thing I was really happy about.
Here comes mine. It's kind of silly. Like, out of the established visual aesthetics for the alien races, which is your favorite?
I'm sorry,
Out of the established visual aesthetics for the alien races, right? Morlon, Shadow, Mizari. Which one was your favorite?
Oh gosh, jeez. If I had to pick one, I mean, I really like Jakar. So it was like, I think that was like, his story is basically more like fascinating. There was always this one alien that I can't remember their race, but they were always like in the background that was really kind of fun to play with and stuff. But our production assistant was actually a big fan of the show, and she actually had a whole bunch of like trading cards and things like that. Yeah, and so she actually brought them in for us for reference. So we gave those to the designers, and they were able to create like a whole bunch of things based on the original trading cards and stuff. When I did my research on the show, I fell into the internet just like reading all this different stuff. I don't know if I said that to you guys before. Yeah, so it's like that was like a super fun thing about discovering this show.
Nice. All right, now.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thanks guys.
Thank you.
Sure.
So you wrap yourself.